The internet used to be better, and I miss it. I miss the old internet a lot because, growing up, I never had a lot of friends. And even from my family, like my parents, they never gave me much guidance in life. But I did have unrestricted access to the internet from a relatively early age, like since I was about 9 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And the internet became my social life. And as I got older, the internet also kind of replaced my parents as the main, like, guiding figure in my life. And I didn't have any one particular role model, but just the hive mind of the internet, I guess you could say, kind of just became a replacement for that guiding figure in my life. Because really, I love my parents and they love me and they support me in a lot of ways, always have, but they never gave me any kind of guidance of what I should be doing with my time, to end up being a successful adult. Um and it's not that I was able to find that with on the internet exactly, but by the time I was an early teenager, I had zero faith in my parents, anything that you could call guidance coming from my parents. I had zero faith in them, in anything they said. Essentially, I was raised by an amalgamation of all the outcasts and weirdos that populated old school internet forums back in the Web 1.0 or Web 2.0 days, whichever one it was. And this was back in, I think I started browsing internet forums in either the year 2000 or 2001. And as soon as I found forums, as soon as I realized, oh, this is a thing, that became everything to me. It was like every waking moment of my childhood up until, I mean, even now, I do use forums to some extent, but not near as much as I used to. But throughout my teens, early 20s, I was day in, day out on the forums. And you can say that's a good thing. You can say it's a bad thing. I think it's kind of a neutral thing, I guess. But what I will tell you is those days are gone. And a kid growing up on the internet, using the internet as a guiding authority figure in his life instead of his parents, a kid doing that today is fucked. But back in my day, I really don't think it was near as bad in a lot of ways. And I just miss it, I just miss, in the same way a lot of men are probably nostalgic about, fun times they had with their friends growing up, playing GoldenEye on Nintendo 64, uh, I don't know, playing soccer in the backyard with your friends. I don't really have those kind of fond memories. My fond memories are is all things that happened online. So, as I was coming into my own as a man growing up, the social circle surrounding me, so to speak, it was a bunch of 16 to 35-year-old nerdy men that were into bodybuilding because the miscellaneous or MISC forum on bodybuilding.com, that became basically my entire social life. From the point I discovered it on for probably the next 10 years. So I would say from like the ages of 16 to, well, maybe like 24, I was big on the MISC. And I never really was a big poster. I didn't post a lot. I was what they would call a lurker. But yeah, it was like that was my social life. And it's really weird because being in that kind of situation, with that being my social life, and me, like I say, I didn't even post much, right? So it's kind of like if you were just hanging around the same people every single day, just listening to them talk, but you never talk to yourself. You're just listening to all your friends talk. That's kind of what my social life was through internet forums. And the forums on bodybuilding.com, that wasn't the only forums I was into. Before that, I went through quite a few. I actually started off using like random anime and video game forums. Forums for JRPGs was a big thing when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And these were usually easy boards. If you don't know what easy board is, easy board was kind of like Reddit before Reddit. You know, it was a website that would let you easily create your own forum. So in a way, it was kind of like Reddit, but you did have to like make a new account for each forum you joined. So it was a little bit different than Reddit in that way. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about like my entire history on the internet, but I just wanted to talk about a few things, a few differences between the old internet and the current state of the internet, and why I miss the old internet so much, and why it was just so much better. And just for a little context, again, basically, I was immersed in the earliest rendition of what eventually came to be known as the manosphere. And I don't think that was necessarily a good thing. Like, if you gave me the option, I probably would have chose to have a loving family instead. You know, a family that knows how to properly guide me through life. And I would have chosen to have a lot of real life friends to talk to and hang out with instead. But I didn't have those things. I had the internet, the early internet, and all the goons and weirdos and social outcasts that came along with it. And they weren't my friends, because I actually never had any online friends. You know, even when I would use forums, I almost never posted. I would only read other people's messages. But yeah, so that's kind of what it was like, you know. So the internet did allow me to have something resembling a social life, which was good for me as a extremely shy child. Because if the internet didn't exist, you might think, oh, well, if he didn't have that distraction, he would have eventually gotten over his social anxiety and been able to make friends in real life. But I don't think that's true. I think if I didn't have the internet to get some form of social life, then I just wouldn't have had any form of social life. And maybe that would have been better than being terminally online from like the prepubescence. Maybe that would have been better, but I don't know. But you know, the internet did allow me to have something resembling a social life. And it gave me a way to learn things that I otherwise, I mean, not even that. It's more like the internet forced me to learn things that I otherwise never would have even thought of. And one example of that, I think I've told this story before on here. I was raised in a Christian household. I went to a Christian school as a kid, and my family, we didn't go to church every Sunday, but I went to church a lot. And I never, probably even to this day, I never would have even considered that all the things, all the religious indoctrination I underwent, I would have never even considered that all that stuff in the Bible and all that is actually not true. I would have never considered that left to my own devices. But since I was terminally online from an early age, I think I was like 12 or 13 years old using, if I recall correctly, I was on an Animal Crossing forum. Right, this happened on an Animal Crossing forum. I somehow got in a religious debate with somebody, and this guy linked me to a website that I still remember. The website was called, it was like the Atheist Bible. I think it was theatheistbible.com or .org. Don't search that because I don't know if that's what it was, and if it was, I don't know if it's still the same thing. For all I know, that's a site you don't want to go to. But yeah, I looked around on this site. Basically, what I'm saying, I became, I changed my religion, right? Like, I dropped my religion. I started being atheist at like 12 years old because of a debate I got into with some random guy on an Animal Crossing forum. And By the way, I'm not talking down to anybody that if you're Christian or religious or whatever, I don't really care. Okay? I'm just telling you, the power that the internet had over me in my young age. Now, there were some downsides to the freedom I had on the internet, obviously. I was exposed to things at a relatively early age that I should not have been, such as videos that and images that are intended only for adults. Now, I saw some things like that, and the first times when I saw things like that, the first few times were on accident. And I was exposed to other things I didn't want to see on the internet, such as back in the day, this isn't really much of a thing anymore, but back in the day there was something called shock images. There's one called Goatsy. There was another one called Tub Girl. There was one called Dessert of the Real, and there's another one that was kind of like a GIF or a little video, called Meat Spin. And yes, I remember all those because eventually I became the bad guy. Okay, here's what it is. These things, it's like people would act like, oh, here's a link to hamsterdance.com or whatever. Here's a link to something you would want to see as a kid. Then you click on it, and it's one of these shock images, which are, I'm not going to describe any of them. It's just disgusting stuff that nobody would want to see. And I saw things like that at a very early age. I closed it immediately. I closed it out as soon as I could, every time. But those images are still seared into my brain, like Tub Girl. Most of you listening to this, I know most of my audience is a little bit younger than me. Y'all probably don't even know what Tub Girl is. And I'm so happy for you, because I wish I didn't. It's just a really gross picture, okay? Now, that's not even the worst, because there are other things that I saw online as a kid that even an adult shouldn't have to see. And I'm talking about, the stuff you would see back in the day, the kind of images that were on a certain rotten website, and it was, pictures of just gore. And it's the kind of thing you never want to see. I specifically remember I don't even know if I was a teenager yet. If I was really young, 13, 14. And again, I wasn't trying to see this picture. I didn't know what I was getting into when I clicked on the link. It was a picture of, I guess the story was a guy was running from the police and he jumped off an overpass or something. And well, the way he landed, the top of some kind of metal fence. Basically, the picture was a decapitated head stuck on the spike on top of a metal fence. And I'm pretty sure it was a real picture too. And that's the kind of thing, the old internet really was the Wild West. And obviously I know you can see stuff, you can come across stuff like that. That same picture is probably on the internet still, I'm sure. But I do think that with the old internet, or maybe it was just because I was a kid, thinking of it now, if I was in Discord servers and stuff now as a kid, you probably see way worse stuff than that. Or I don't know if it gets way worse than that, but you know what I'm saying. So I don't know. That obviously wasn't a good thing, but I'm just talking about my experiences with the internet, so whatever. I feel like it's not that interesting. There's a few things I wanted to talk about concerning the old internet compared to the internet of today, and why the old internet is better. Okay, so one thing is everything, the entire internet now it's all centralized to just a few big corporate apps or websites, right? Back in the day, if you had a hobby of I don't know, you're a model airplane collector. You could Google model airplane collection hobby, model airplanes, whatever, and you would find just dozens of websites made by individual enthusiasts, and you would probably find multiple different forums, right? And the forum and all the rules on the forum that is created by and for model airplane enthusiasts, that forum, the user base on that forum and the set of rules that you had to follow posting on that forum concerning things like hate speech or whatever, what you are and are not allowed to post, that would all be somewhat influenced or at least created by a person that is a model airplane enthusiast. But nowadays, if you want to, if you Google model airplane enthusiast, I'm just going to do it right now. I'm going to Google that and we're going to see what I get because I'm pretty sure it's going to be retarded. Okay, so see, I Googled model airplane enthusiast, right? So the first thing we see is just like a Google AI, whatever. I don't want this. Nobody that's searching for things on the internet, we don't want. This is not what we want. What is this garbage? This AI overview, I'm not even going to read it, and I don't, because that's not what I want, okay? Top result here. Look, it's sponsored things you can buy, right? It's shopping, okay? The first community, anything that kind of resembles, a forum or a community based on model airplane enthusiasts is a Facebook group. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Back in the day, I would have come across some kind of website that was owned by an individual model airplane enthusiast. And I'm sure this Facebook group was started by some kind of airplane enthusiast, but it's Facebook, all right? It's Facebook. Okay, then I have the next thing under that. It's people also ask, what are plane enthusiasts called? What to get someone who is obsessed with planes? Blah, 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 blah. Like these people, it's like other, a collection of suggestions for what else I could Google. What could you Google next? Like, I don't want this. I know what I typed in the search bar. That's what I'm looking for, okay? Under that, it's videos. And these videos might be, if you're a model airplane enthusiast, these videos from RC Plane Reviewer on YouTube, that might be interesting to you. Okay, so let's see, it's all you used to Google stuff and you got a list of things. You got just a list of different websites you can click on. But look at here, when we Googled right now, we have it's not just a list of links, it's a bunch of different types of results. You know what I mean? Like we Googled model airplane enthusiast. First thing we get is a AI overview. Okay, that's one specific type of result. Next thing we get, a list of sponsored links to stores, right? And it's in this, they're like rectangles. You know what I'm saying? So that, again, that's a second thing. That's a second type of result. Okay, third thing, it's a link to this Facebook group. This is the type of, back in the day when you Googled, it would all be links like this. And they wouldn't be to Facebook or Reddit or anything either. But I'm just saying, it would be links like this, right? Okay, so anyways, that's the third type of thing. Directly under that, people also ask, right? It's suggestions for other things to Google. That is a fourth type of result, right? The next thing, a list of videos. That is a fifth type of result, okay? So the first 5 results you get from a Google search, currently, you get, in sequence, 5 different types of results. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is what is this? I didn't even realize it was like this, and it's probably been like this for years. Okay, after you get past all that, you get past the videos part, okay, now you start to see what a Google search used to be, right? Just a list of links, right? But let's just see what they are, okay? Academy of Model Aeronautics. Okay, you know what? Modelaircraft.org. That site's probably been around for 25 years, right? That is the kind of thing that I actually want when I search. So we got there, give them a hand. Give them a hand. They're giving us a good result. Okay, and I'm just curious. We'll just go to this website real quick because I wonder like what the web design of it looks. Okay, it's corporate. Look at this. A freaking orc working at this place. Okay, whatever. That site's fine. The next result is something from Reddit r/model makers. Okay, sure. Then we have a link to Medium, which is like an article. It's a website. It's a whatever. One of those big corporate. Medium is one of the few websites that everything is centralized around. Okay, under that, model airplane news. Okay. Let's see what that is. I don't know. Maybe this is a good website if you're. No, they're selling articles. I don't know. This is garbage, right? You don't want to. You see, even when I find something through the Google search result that I think seems like, oh, this is kind of the kind of thing you would want to find, the kind of thing you would have expected to find back in the day. Then I click on it and no, it's all paywalled. People are, they're trying to sell. They're trying to sell you access to articles that were probably written by AI. What is this? What is this? The internet, I'm done with this, by the way. I'm turning off OBS. I don't care. Back in the day, the internet was kind of like the Wild West, and I'm sure you've heard people say that. But it was something where people posted on the internet, people used the internet, people shared their information on the internet just to share it, just to the internet was like a library, It still is to some extent, but everybody's trying to put every little piece of information behind a paywall. Everybody wants you to pay. And you know what? I guess I'm kind of guilty of this right now because I'm putting this YouTube video up, right? I put this up, but there's going to be ads playing in this. And by the way, even if I disable ads, I'm pretty sure YouTube will still play ads, even if I don't monetize this video. I'm not 100% on that, but I am going to monetize it because whatever. This is the climate we live in now. And YouTube is another part of the problem, Let me name a few websites for you. Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Medium, Stack Overflow, Quora, YouTube, Pinterest. Okay, that's enough for now. I named I think 10 websites, okay? If you do a Google search on anything you can think of, do a Google search, those websites I mentioned, I guess not all of them are applicable. You're not going to get Snapchat results in your search results, but those 10 websites I mentioned, or 10 big corporate apps, whatever you want to call them, when you search for anything on Google, most of the results are from one or more of those sites. Or not, that doesn't make sense. Most of the results will be from those sites. And maybe a few others. But if you search for anything on Google, you're going to get Facebook results, you'll get a bunch of Reddit results, probably get Instagram results, probably see some stuff from Pinterest, especially a Google image search. You're going to see stuff from Pinterest. The results are just it's not what it used to be. For some of you that are younger, you might not know this. Searching on Google used to just be a list of links. And they weren't all from the same websites. It wasn't just a bunch of Reddit links. It was a bunch of links to different websites. And part of the problem with this, if I wanted to have my own community back in the day, I would use, EasyBoard. I could create a GeoCities website. I could make a website on AngelFire. I could make a vBulletin forum. I could use PHPBB, and Yeah, there were ways that were like relatively plug and play, a little more difficult than just making a subreddit, but relatively easy, relatively plug and play, where you could make your own forum, you could make your own website, and you could do it for free in most cases. Or if not for free, it would be cheap. But now, if I wanted to create my own community, well, I would use Discord or Reddit, right? And maybe depending on what you're doing, you have your own business or something. You make Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter. That's another one I forgot about. But the problem is all of these big corporate websites, they all have, if you're on any given subreddit, or let's say I create my own subreddit, right? And I want people to be allowed to like talk about whatever they want. Say, I want to make a website where people are allowed to talk about things concerning gender identity, right? And I want people to be able to, if somebody has the position that they don't agree with the mainstream quote unquote science, you can't really call it that, but if someone doesn't agree with the quote unquote mainstream science, I want to allow that discussion. I want to allow that discussion to happen on my community that I created. But back in the day, I would have been able to do that. But now, my only options really is to, if I want people to actually use it, right? Because I can still create my own forum. I can still use vBulletin or whatever. But nobody's ever going to find that. It won't even show up in Google search results. So I have to, if I want people to find this community, I have to make it a Reddit. It has to be Reddit or a Facebook group or something, right? Because that's the only way to organically gather an audience, to like show up in the search results. So the problem with that is I can create my own subreddit about mostly any topic I want, but I can't have my own rules about what is allowed to be talked about and what isn't allowed to be talked about on my subreddit that I create, right? Because I still have to follow the site-wide Reddit community guidelines, the rules. And all these big corporations, their community guidelines are not very neutral. It's not a free speech type of philosophy that they have. It's more of a... See, another problem with this, all of the big social media websites, for the most part, Reddit, YouTube, all these websites they're all tech companies. They're all owned by left-leaning Silicon Valley tech companies. So the acceptable discourse via the community guidelines and the rules on these big social media apps or sites, whatever you want to call them, it's all super liberal, left-leaning, which in 2025, that tends to mean free speech is not valued very highly. And I'm not like totally opposed to internet communities I'm a part of having like some kind of ban on hate speech in general. I'm not like necessarily opposed to that. I think it's fine for communities to not have that and just allow any kind of speech. But I also think it's fine for communities to moderate. But the problem is, if every single community is on Reddit or one of these sites, which they all are, then that's just every community has the same set of rules. And it just so happens to be probably the least permissive set of rules you could imagine for an online community. Free speech, not valued. Speaking anything other than the mainstream opinion about, things that aren't even scientifically settled or things that are kind of outside the realm of actual silence. Things like, gender identity. Shh, don't tell them I said that. If you say you like on certain topics like this, you have to agree, You're there's only so much I can say on this topic without just, you get the point, The whole internet is centralized to just a small number of websites, apps, that are essentially in themselves each a giant tech corporation, and promoting free speech is not something they care about. Also, it's loaded with propaganda. That's another thing. Let's move on from that point. Here's another point. Back in the old internet days that I'm so nostalgic for, the people that were on the internet, when I was young, or when I was a teenager, even up to my late teens, before 2010, really. But by 2010, it was starting to get bad. But 2005, 2001, 2002, 2007, whatever. I'm just naming numbers at random. But back in those days, you could go on some forum, some internet communities, or just read articles on a website, on someone's blog. By the way, blogs hardly even exist anymore. But anyways, you could just go to some random blog, you read it, and you would know, an actual person wrote this. And when you were looking at forums, you're just reading comments from users, and you can feel confident this is a real person that is typing this. An actual person thought these words and they typed it with their fingers and they decided to post it. This is a real person. They're just here to socialize, maybe learn some things, maybe teach some things, maybe just share some personal stories. This is just a real person that is here that chose to come to this same website as me and socialize. They're not doing it, they're not working for the Democratic National Committee or whatever, They're not working on any kind of politician's campaign. They're not working for any foreign government trying to, it's not propaganda. It's just real people. That's what it used to be all over the internet, real people. But now it's not. We know now if you go to Reddit or even YouTube now, actual YouTube videos, a lot of it is not real people, And even this is, it's tough because I think with like Reddit comments and stuff, we all, like the average person knows by now when they're reading comments on Reddit that this is not necessarily a real person, This might be a bot. Because there's been commenting bots for like 15 years, 20 years now. That's old news. But what's even more insidious is now that, AI like ChatGPT has made it a lot easier for the common person to just generate whatever, kind of propaganda comments they want at a high rate. But also you've got things like YouTube, which is its own form of social media, which I really like the concept of YouTube. I could do a whole video about old YouTube versus current YouTube, but we have like AI video. Well, here's the problem. Because it doesn't have to be an AI generated video. It's got to the point you can't really trust anything you see to be like an actual person. Even if it's a real person in the video speaking the words, those words may have been written by AI. And I get the accusation on this channel a lot. A lot of people claim, and I know a lot of people are just kind of joking, but a lot of people seem to seriously think that the videos I make are like AI generated scripts. And some people have even think that my voice is AI, which that's kind of ridiculous. But people think that like the words that I'm saying, there's people listening to this right now that probably think this was AI generated. And I don't blame people for thinking that because you should always be skeptical. Any video you see on YouTube might be AI in one way or another, and it might be propaganda. It might just be somebody trying to make a profit. It might be propaganda. It might be like something quite more insidious, whatever the word is, than someone just trying to make a profit. So you should always be skeptical. You absolutely should. And it's getting worse. Fuck. It's getting worse. It's getting so much worse. It's crazy to think, but right now we are actually I think we're actually only in the early stages of how bad the internet has become and how bad it is becoming. I think it will get worse. The only thing, and maybe this has been done, the only fix I see to the internet problem and all the problems we have with the internet, somebody just has to make a new internet, you know? And don't allow there to be any kind of profiteering. Don't allow any monetary transactions to happen on. But you know that too doesn't monetary transactions in and of itself doesn't really go against the spirit of the internet. It's just, I don't know. You know, you couldn't even create a new internet. That's kind of silly anyways. So I don't think there's any fixing it. And I'm glad that I am old enough that I at least have the ability to remember what it was like. And again, I got into the internet late 90s, early 2000s, and I was a child. Okay, so my earliest explorations on the internet, I was not seeing, you know, because before forums, there was like Usenet groups or something like that. That's before my time. I don't really know about that stuff. Here's the other thing about the internet these days compared to back in the early 2000s when I was using the internet. All the people that you communicated with on the internet back then, you know, there was a meme that if someone says they're a woman on the internet, they're lying. And it's all men. And it was more than just a meme, it was actually pretty much true. It was a good heuristic to go by, a good rule of thumb, because it very often times was true. The internet now, when you go on Reddit or YouTube, any comment section, it's the people commenting are the same normies and women that you would see at Walmart. It's the same people you see at the grocery store. That's the same people on the Reddit comment section, on the YouTube comment sections. Pick a random comment, go to the grocery store, pick a random person you see. You know, it's the same collection of people. Back in the early 2000s, when I was young, using the internet, it wasn't internet users in and of themselves. If somebody was on the internet, they were probably had like super high rates of autism. They were almost definitely a man or a boy, right? The internet was like a very masculine place, like, which, you know, I feel like I have to say this all the time on this channel, but again, to be clear, if anyone was confused, I don't hate women. I don't hate girls. I think they're valuable to society. Okay. I don't have anything against them, generally speaking. Now, but it really was something interesting that the internet back in the day, it was like a place I could go with just vast amounts of information, and you can just talk to people from all over the world. But everything you were seeing on the internet back then came from mostly men, and so it was always slightly a masculine perspective, a little bit more, you know, certain things like gender ideology and self-identification of gender as being like an accepted thing. If you go on any like social media on the internet today, that is like the mainstream corporate opinion is the same opinion you see because, well, for one, we have corporations and propagandists astroturfing every website on the internet, but also because the internet is full of normal people, normies, and a lot of women, okay? And also, you know, because women are there on Reddit, men that are on Reddit or whatever websites, they're moderating themselves, right? And they actually change their opinions. If you're around women when a deep discussion is happening, your brain isn't even working right because you'll be more open to liberal left-leaning thoughts and you'll be less open to anything that goes against any kind of narrative because basically you're like, I think it's because when you're around women, all your testosterone, instead of like going into your brain to like make you be more smart, all your testosterone is like, how do I fuck her? How can I fuck her? You know, it's all you're thinking. Like, how can I fuck one of these women? Like all your testosterone is focused on that instead of on like having, you know, deep open, honest thought in your head. So that's what it's like on the internet now. When you get on the internet as a man, it's just like all these comments like, oh, is that a girl commenting? Oh, she used exclamation points. That must be a girl. How do I fuck her? How do I fuck her? And you're just thinking like, you can't just sit down, read comments on the internet, have like an open, you can't have an open internal dialogue with yourself, right? Because you have the I'm around women effect going on. And there's normies too. And all normies have women brains. You want to know my take on the science behind gender ideology? They talk about brain scan studies, a man in a woman's body, blah, 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 man's brain, what a woman's body, whatever. Okay? I don't want to get into that. I don't care what you believe. I believe what I believe. You believe what you believe. Here's my take. All normies have a woman's brain. All normies. Normie women, normie men, that's a woman's brain. Okay, there's my take. And that is pretty progressive. That is a pretty progressive take. Okay? So, yeah. But it wasn't just, I didn't really make the point I wanted to make. Back in the day with the old internet, it wasn't just that it had a more masculine energy and a masculine user base. It was also kind of autistic. To even understand like signing into forums and using the internet as a 13-year-old in 2003, it was a little bit of like an esoteric thing, right? Like you had to understand computers. Not everybody even like understood how to use a desktop computer very well back then, by the way. So it was just everything about the internet. And here's another thing. The internet back in the day also leaned younger. It was like a generally younger demographic because there was a lot of young people like me that grew up with computers, so we knew how to use computers very well, and we were able to figure out things on the internet, like how to use forums, and just able to figure out like what all the internet has to offer because we explored it, because we were young, we had free time, and we knew how to use computers. And then the other, there was also a bunch of older people on the internet, but like almost no one like elderly, right? There were some people in their 40s or 50s maybe, and they were nerds. They were like PhD holders and like master's degree computer scientists and stuff. And back in the day, that was kind of impressive to have a master's degree in computer science. Doesn't mean anything nowadays, but whatever. Now, again, go to Target, go to the grocery store and just look around. Those are the same people that are commenting on Reddit, okay? Just anybody. It's just anybody. They could be 90 years old. There's 80-year-olds posting on Reddit all day, every day. What the fuck? I want the internet to go back to being when I was growing up, the internet was like my demographic. All the other people on the internet, there was so much community, there was a lot of disagreement on different things, but there was so much community just in the sense like we're all dudes that are kind of outcasts. Pretty much all of us on the internet are dudes of different ages, and we're all outcasts, and we're kind of nerds, and we're probably autistic. All of us. Okay, all of us. That's what the internet was. That's who was on the internet. Now it's everybody. You might be reading a Reddit comment and like you don't even know the comment was made by fucking Demi Lovato or Sasha Obama, Everybody's on the internet. It could be like the cashier that just watched you scan your groceries at the self-checkout at the Walmart Supercenter. You go home, you post a not even that controversial comment on some debate subreddit, you get banned, and who was it that banned you? It was that fat ass at the self-checkout. Another thing about the old internet, back in the day, you would come across there was every different aesthetic design, and aesthetics and functionally, the web design of various websites back in the day, in the old internet, there was so much diversity. But now it's all kind of it's like the big corporate sameness. Everything's got that same aesthetic. You know, go to Reddit or YouTube, or they're all becoming the same thing. And it's kind of the same way. If you see, like, you've probably seen, noticed this, back in the day, McDonald's looked different than Wendy's, and it looked different than Burger King, which looked different than Taco Bell. But if you look at any Taco Bell or McDonald's or Wendy's that was built in like the last 10 years, they're literally all the same. They're all like a dark gray cube. Every fast food restaurant looks the same. And it's exactly the same thing. That same monoculture when it comes to aesthetic design is the same thing we see on the web nowadays. Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, it all looks the same. It's all the same design repeated. But back in the day, you would go to like just any website, and it could even be like even corporate websites. In the early 2000s, there was really no standard. Okay, so web design was all over the place. And you also did come across a lot more websites that were created by amateurs, like even children. I had my own websites because of GeoCities made it easy. But, there was so much diversity in design, in the artisticness of it, the aesthetics of it. And that's one of the things really that really pulls on the nostalgia, That's one of the reasons so many people, myself included, we are so... I miss the old internet. I really miss it a lot. And that's one of the reasons. Because it had a certain feel to it. It was a chaos. You never knew what you were going to find when you went to like any website. You didn't know. You really didn't know what you might see. And it just goes back to, now with the internet, everything on the internet is the same. The people on the internet are the same collection of any random person you might see at the grocery store. The way the internet is paywalled and corporatized, it's like the internet used to be kind of like like a free speech, free, like monetarily free to use. You had to pay for internet access, but like almost nothing was paywalled. I think the somethingawful.com forums were like one of the earliest paywalled websites, as far as I know. The only thing, you weren't paying to read articles on the New York Times back in the day. You didn't pay to read random blog articles. You didn't have to log in to read articles on a random blog. Like, I'm not going to make an account on medium.com. I'm just going to not click on links to medium.com because I'm not making an account. And that might not even be a website that requires you to make an account to read content on it. I don't even know. I'm not clicking on it. I'm not going to find out. Because even if they don't make you make an account now, they will in the future. And I don't like signing into every single website with the same Google account. It's convenient. It's really convenient. So I understand the appeal of it. But I don't want to do that. It's something about that. I've read that that's actually like more secure. I understand why that's the case, but I don't trust it, okay? I don't trust Google. I don't trust, except when it comes to any kind of political opinions that could be or may be considered controversial by any persons or nations or whatever. In that case, I agree with Google and Alphabet Incorporated and YouTube as a company. I agree with their positions 100%, okay? Now, I don't like signing... Fuck it. I hate the internet. I hate what it is now. It's all fake. The dead internet theory used to be kind of like, it literally is what it is now. I don't have the details on like what percentage of content you see on the internet is fake. But if you go to Reddit, you can tell when something was written by AI, especially like if you've ever used ChatGPT, and I do encourage all of you to do this, go to ChatGPT and tell it to write you something, okay? Tell it to write a Reddit comment for you or a YouTube comment for you, for example, and give it a little bit of details about what you want it to say, and get it to write you like, try it a few times, right? Get it to write you like 3, 4, 5 different comments. Okay? Because when you do that, you will start to notice patterns in how it writes. And once you see it, you can't miss it. And it's not even something that, it's maybe like little subtle things that you just know it when you see it, you know? So it's kind of hard for me to describe. But I do encourage everybody to do that. Because when you do that, then you go to Reddit or you're in YouTube comment sections, you start seeing it. And like just a lot of the comments, especially on Reddit, you start seeing it. It's like, oh, like 50% of Reddit or more is all AI. It's AI generated comments. And some of that might be real users that are like, I just thought AI could help me phrase it better. Some of it might be that, which isn't like super nefarious. It's retarded, but whatever. I wouldn't have a big problem with that, but most of it is, I don't know. It's like, why? I really don't know. It's propaganda. It's propaganda. It's propaganda. Most of it is propaganda. So, the internet now is fake, corporate, monoculture. You're only allowed to think the right thoughts, right? The internet used to be a place you could go to get differing opinions. Good luck finding differing opinions on Reddit. You can't. If you want differing opinion, I mean, I don't even know. I'm not going to recommend you look at Discord or anything, because I don't know. There's like some weird stuff that goes on there. I don't really know. I miss the old internet, and I know this is not like my usual videos. This is I didn't really write much of an outline for this one. I usually write some kind of outline, so I have some talking points to stick to. I did write a few things down for this, but I really went off the rails. So, yeah, the internet really sucks now, and that's about all I got to say about that.